Hello and welcome. Today we are looking at 10 U.S. presidents and their impact on America. Throughout U.S. history, certain presidents have left an unforgettable mark on the nation's political, social, and economic development. Some expanded the country's territory, while others championed civil rights and economic stability. Here are 10 presidents who navigated pivotal moments in American history, from managing wars and crises to leading groundbreaking legislation and reforms. George Washington, 1789 to 1797. As the first president, George Washington set important precedents that shaped the future of the presidency and the nation. He established the tradition of peaceful power transfer and chose not to seek a third term, preventing the presidency from becoming a lifetime position. His leadership unified the young nation after the American Revolution and helped draft policies that laid the groundwork for the federal government. Abraham Lincoln, 1861 to 1865. Abraham Lincoln is renowned for his leadership during the Civil War, the most divisive period in U.S. history. His commitment to preserving the Union and his moral stance against slavery led to the Emancipation Proclamation, which set the stage for the 13th Amendment's abolition of slavery. Lincoln's leadership kept the nation united and redefined America's values of equality and freedom. Franklin D. Roosevelt, 1933 to 1945. FDR guided the U.S. through the Great Depression and World War II, two of the nation's greatest challenges. His New Deal programs, which involved significant government intervention, stabilized the economy and provided relief to millions of struggling Americans. His leadership during World War II established the U.S. as a global superpower. Serving 4 terms, FDR left a deep and lasting impact on the nation's policies and institutions. Thomas Jefferson, 1801 to 1809. Jefferson's presidency is highlighted by the Louisiana Purchase, which doubled the size of the U.S. and opened new territories for westward expansion. He was also a strong advocate for democratic principles and individual rights, steering the nation toward greater liberty and democracy. His vision of an agrarian America influenced the country's early policy direction. Andrew Jackson, 1829 to 1837. Andrew Jackson was a populist leader who championed the common man and broke away from the elite political class of his time. He strengthened the presidency, advocating for its power. While his controversial policies, like the Indian Removal Act, led to the forced relocation of Native American tribes, Jackson also expanded democracy by broadening voting rights to more white males, signaling a shift toward a more direct and participatory democracy. Theodore Roosevelt, 1901 to 1909. A progressive reformer, Theodore Roosevelt pushed for significant domestic reforms that increased federal regulation of big businesses. His Square Deal policies promoted fair business practices, worker protections, and conservation efforts, including the creation of national parks. Roosevelt's assertive foreign policy, exemplified by the Panama Canal's construction and the Roosevelt Corollary, established the U.S. as a rising global power. Woodrow Wilson, 1913 to 1921. Wilson's presidency is most noted for his leadership during World War I and his vision for international diplomacy in its aftermath. His 14 points became the basis for peace negotiations and the creation of the League of Nations, a precursor to the United Nations. Domestically, Wilson's administration introduced reforms like the Federal Reserve Act and the Clayton Antitrust Act, which modernized the U.S. economy and regulated business practices. Harry S. Truman, 1945 to 1953. Truman faced significant challenges at the end of World War II, including the decision to drop atomic bombs on Japan, which hastened the war's end. His presidency shaped post-war foreign policy with the Truman Doctrine, aimed at containing communism, and the Marshall Plan, which helped rebuild Europe. He also oversaw NATO's creation and desegregated the U.S. Armed Forces, paving the way for the Civil Rights Movement. Lyndon B. Johnson, 1963 to 1969. Johnson's Great Society domestic agenda led to sweeping reforms aimed at eliminating poverty and racial injustice. He signed the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, landmark legislation that dismantled institutional racism and expanded civil rights for African Americans. His War on Poverty programs created Medicare and Medicaid, transforming healthcare in America. However, his presidency was also defined by the unpopular Vietnam War. Ronald Reagan, 1981 to 1989. Reagan's conservative policies transformed the U.S. economy and reshaped the political landscape. His economic strategy, known as Reaganomics, focused on tax cuts, deregulation, and reducing government spending, leading to a period of economic growth. His strong stance against the Soviet Union and his challenge to Mikhail Gorbachev to tear down this wall contributed to the end of the Cold War. Reagan's presidency also sparked a resurgence in American patriotism and conservative ideology. These presidents profoundly influenced American politics, society, and global standing through war, economic reform, civil rights, and international diplomacy.